Hello everyone. This is introduction video to one of the important chapters in physical chemistry, which is thermodynamics. Now, thermodynamics it's a topic which is common to some extent in both physics as well as chemistry. So we'll see what are the things that will be common in physics and chemistry, so that we'll be able to correlate them accordingly, and it will help in terms of the ease of learning. So we don't need to really learn them in two places if we understand it thoroughly in one place, right? We'll just have to make some small changes or modifications to suit the other part. Let's say, for example, we are learning the thermodynamics thoroughly in chemistry. Then when we go to the physics part, right, we'll just have to make some small changes in terms of what we call as sign convention. So we'll talk about that as we go along into the chapter, but this has got some parts in common to the physics thermodynamics also. But what is basically thermodynamics? So thermodynamics is a part of science where we'll talk about the study of heat changes in both physical as well as chemical processes. So whenever there is a physical change or chemical change happening, then there will be some heat changes or heat exchanges, we can say, that will be involved, and the entire study related to that, right, is what we'll be calling as thermodynamics. So we'll see how we are going to do that study in this particular chapter. But broadly speaking, right, if you divide them into the heat changes with regard to the physical processes and heat changes with regard to the chemical processes, this is what we will be having in common with physics. So in physics also you will be learning about what the thermodynamics with regard to the physical processes. In chemistry particularly, we'll be having this second part, which is the thermodynamics related to the chemical processes. We can even call it as thermochemistry. So the thermodynamics related to the chemical processes, we can also call it as what? Thermochemistry. So this will be exclusive to only chemistry part. In physics, right, in addition to the physical process thermodynamics, you will be also learning about something called as heat engines, because that is the application of thermodynamics in physics. In physics you will be learning thermodynamics to understand about the heat engines, which will be able to convert. So heat engines are basically the devices that will convert heat into work. They are basically the heat engines. Here in chemistry, once we complete the basic idea of what is the thermodynamics in case of physical process, we will move on to thermochemistry part. So where we'll talk about the heat changes particularly related to the chemical reactions and chemical phenomena. So this is broadly what we'll be having in terms of the overall thermodynamics. Now the entire purview of thermodynamics chapter, right, will be surrounding these three laws of thermodynamics. So what we call as the zeroth law, first law, and second law. So the entire study of the thermodynamics will be around these three laws: zeroth law, first law, and then second law of thermodynamics. So what is zeroth law, what is first law, and what is second law of thermodynamics, we will cover in this chapter, but this will be the broad coverage of what is it going to be in terms of the entire chapter. So covering these laws, we will talk about the thermodynamics with regard to the physical changes and thermodynamics with regard to the chemical changes. Now whenever we talk about the idea of thermodynamics or study of heat changes, we will be focusing on something, because if we say that no, we are observing heat changes, we are observing heat changes for what? So for what we are observing these heat changes, right, that is what we will be calling as a system. So anything we observe for the thermodynamic study will be called as system. Like say for example, we are looking at the gas in a container, so this will be a system. And say for example another case, we are looking at the liquid in a vessel, so the liquid in the vessel will be a system. And not necessary that the system need to have a physical boundary. Like say for example, we have a big room, there is a really big room, and in that big room we'll say that the particles in half of the room, so there is no physical boundary here. You can see that I'm just drawing to indicate it, there is no boundary here actually. So the particles in the left half of the room can be the system that we are focusing to study. And when we focus on anything to study, so the point is the system need not have a physical boundary. And when we are focusing anything for the thermodynamic study, the remaining part of the universe, so the rest of the universe, right? So other than your system, the rest of universe is basically what we'll be calling as surroundings. So whenever we are getting into the thermodynamic study, the system and surrounding is important. So what is system? Basically, whatever the thing that we are trying to observe or study will be called a system. The remaining part of the entire universe will be what? Surroundings. And we will be looking at what are the kind of exchanges that will happen between the system and surroundings, and that is what we will be focusing in the thermodynamics discussion. And if you look at the system and surrounding interaction, there are basically two kinds of interactions or exchanges. One is in terms of mass exchange, the second is in terms of the energy or heat exchange. So if we have a surrounding and system combination where the mass exchange is possible, as well as the energy exchange or heat exchange is also possible. Like say we have an open room. Then in the case of open room, what happens? If you look at an open room, right? So let's say for example the door is open. The door is basically open. So this is an example like this, where we can see that some air particles can go in and come out. At the same time they will be also able to pass on heat. The surrounding will be able to pass on the heat to the gas inside the room. So this type of systems where both mass and energy exchange are possible, right, we will be calling them as open systems. And if we close the door and we tightly make sure that there are no gaps allowed for the air particles to either come in or go out, then we can stop the mass exchange, but still the heat exchange can happen. The walls will be able to pass on the heat from outside to inside, or they can pass on the heat from inside to outside. So such systems, right, where the mass exchange is stopped and energy exchange is allowed, we'll be calling them as closed systems. And if we are able to stop even the energy exchange, this we'll usually do by a theoretical concept of what we call as an adiabatic wall. So the theoretical concept that we'll talk about is what? Adiabatic wall. So adiabatic wall is supposed to completely stop. It is supposed to completely stop the heat exchange. Like if you think about, there is no perfect adiabatic wall, but if you think about what can be the parallel, right? We would have seen that ice, generally when we are transporting ice, right, we'll be using these boxes made up of thermocol. So why do we make the ice in these thermocol boxes? Why? Because the thermocol boxes, they will stop the heat exchange between the ice and surrounding. Otherwise what happens? The ice will be simply melting. The surrounding heat will go into the ice and ice will simply melt. So to prevent it, we are using what? The thermocol material. So you can think of, that is also not perfect, because if you hold it for 1 or 2 hours, that's fine. But if you want to stay longer, means still the ice will start melting. So if you can think of one theoretical concept where it is able to completely stop, and that is what we will be calling as the adiabatic wall, which can stop the heat exchange. So such a system where mass exchange is not possible with surroundings, heat or energy exchange is also not possible, we will call it as an isolated system. So what are these systems going to be called as? Isolated. They are completely isolated. And how do we isolate them? Generally by using the adiabatic walls. And we talked about the 3 types of systems. One is open, where both energy and mass exchange is possible. Closed for mass but energy exchange is possible. Isolated, where mass exchange is not possible, energy exchange also not possible. In our purview, right, we have the study of both closed systems and isolated systems. Like the way even in the physics, you will be talking only about the study of objects or systems where mass is going to remain constant. Because if mass is changing, right, the study or observation is going to be a little bit more complicated. So it is not like in thermodynamics people don't study about the open systems. People also study about the open systems. That will happen at the higher standards. But for our, at our, the plus one, plus two level, right, what we have is only the study of closed systems and then isolated systems. Now, when we talked about these three combinations, right, if you observe one thing, we have left out one scenario. What is scenario that we left out? We have left out the scenario where mass exchange possible and heat exchange stopped. So this scenario we have not covered. You know why we have not covered this? Because this will not be feasible. Because if you allow mass to exchange, right, like say for example, we take this case of the open room where we are allowing the particles to come in and go out. When we allow the particles to come in and go out, definitely they will be carrying some extra heat with them, or they will take some extra heat with them. So you cannot have a system where mass exchange is possible and heat exchange is stopped. So this combination is not going to work out. So we have these three types of systems: open system, closed system, and then isolated system. In our syllabus we are going to be focusing on what? The closed systems and isolated systems, for which the mass is going to be remaining constant. So this is how we'll classify the systems based on the possibility of mass exchange and then energy exchange. Now whenever we look at a thermodynamic system, a system is described, any system, right, is described by a set of variables. We can also call them as what, we can also call them as properties. So what are these variables or properties? Like say for example, we have some gas in a container. Let us say this is a system. Then the properties that we are describing here are basically, let us say, the mass of the gas, 2 kg is the mass of the gas. Number of moles, 0.05 moles. What is the temperature? 28 degrees centigrade. What is the pressure? 3 bar. So these aspects, which basically talk about the description of what is an system, is called as what? Thermodynamic variables. Like we talk about the mass, we talk about the number of moles, we talk about the temperature, we talk about the pressure, we talk about volume. So all of them, we'll be calling them as what? Thermodynamic variables or thermodynamic properties. Essentially, during the course of the thermodynamic study, right, we'll be focusing on these properties or variables. Some of these variables, like we are already aware of, like we know about mass, we know about temperature. Generally, when we talk about the gases, right, gases, we'll study the gases by using what? Mass, number of moles, temperature, pressure, and volume. But in addition to that, we will see some more new variables. Like in this thermodynamics discussion, we'll talk about new variables like internal energy. Now in the further videos of this lesson, we will study in detail about what is internal energy, how do we measure it, and all those things. But here we'll just try to get a broad idea of what is the internal energy. So if you look at any system, whether it is a gas or a liquid or a solid, at a micro level we'll have the particles. And talking about the gases, right, these particles will be able to move in the entire container. Liquid means they will be moving in the available volume of the liquid. Solid means they will be having fixed places, but they will be vibrating about the fixed places. You see, every case there is a motion for these particles. The particles are associated with what? Motion. So if we look at the energy of these particles at a micro level, so the energy of particles at the micro level, the energy associated with the motion of the particles, that is what we will be calling as the internal energy. So what is the internal energy? It is the basically sum of micro level energies of particles. So we'll study about this in detail later, but here we'll just get a broad idea. So it is sum of the micro level energies of the particles. What do you mean by the micro level energies? So if you look at a liquid or a gas or a solid, we see that the particles are having what? Some kind of motion. It may be a translation motion, like the way you will study in physics. It may be a rotational motion, or it may be a simply to and fro vibrational motion. So we'll have some kind of motion of these particles, and that is energy associated with them. So if we can somehow add up all these energies, right, what are we going to call it as? We'll call it as what? Internal energy. And internal energy is indicated by the symbol either U or E. I mean, that is the symbol that we use to represent the internal energy. The thing is, as we have seen in the gaseous state, the velocities of the particles are going to be depending upon what temperature. Means this internal energy will be depending upon the temperature. It is going to depend upon temperature. So we will see later what is the exact formula or relation between the temperature and the internal energy. But here we just need to know that, okay, this is going to be depending upon what? Temperature. Now, the idea of internal energy is, if you talk about the ideal gases, or so to say the ideal systems where the particles and particles will not have interactions, for the ideal gases, right, the internal energy will only be coming from the kinetic energy part. It is only what the part of the energy associated with the motion of particles, kinetic energy. It may be translation kinetic energy, it may be rotation, it may be vibration. But if you go to the real gases, between real gas particles, what will be there? There will be also these attractive forces. I mean, there will be the attractive forces or repulsive forces. So these forces, right, can be accounted as what? Potential energy. So for the real gases, internal energy will be including what? It will be including kinetic energy and then potential energy. So this is about the way we will look at the internal energy. So for the ideal gases means it is only in terms of the kinetic energy of particles. Real gases means it is going to be the kinetic energy plus potential energy. We may not be able to directly measure. We can't take each and every particle and measure what is the kinetic energy of the particles, and we can't even measure what is the potential energy for each and every particle. So we'll have alternative methods to find out what is the internal energy value. So that we will discuss in the later part of this chapter. But this is what is one more additional thermodynamic variable we'll talk about. So what is it? Internal energy. What is it basically? It is a sum of micro level energies of the particles of the system. Now the other important thermodynamic variable we'll study in this chapter is entropy. Now entropy, it's a quantity or term that represents randomness. Entropy represents what? Randomness. It represents randomness associated with the particles. It represents randomness associated with the particles of a system. So what do we mean by this? If we have gas, the gas particles will be able to randomly move in all directions. A liquid you take, generally gas, right, the randomness will be more. Liquid means the particles will move but still within the volume of the liquid. So in that case, right, the randomness will be what? Little bit lesser. If you go to a solid means the particles will be only able to vibrate about their places, means randomness is going to even little bit decrease. So what we have is, if you talk about this randomness, it will be higher in the case of gaseous state. Liquid it will be a little bit lesser. A solid means it will be even more lesser. So entropy, it is quantified as the energy stored in the random motion or randomness associated with the particles. So every system, right, will have a set of particles. The particles will be very large. It will not be like a 10 or 1000. It will be large number of particles, millions and millions. So if you look at the energy associated with the randomness of the particles movement, that is what we'll be calling as what? Entropy. So the entropy for the gaseous state will be higher than the liquid state, than the solid state. And entropy is indicated by the symbol S. The entropy will be indicated by what? Symbol S. And the energy stored in the form of the randomness will be equal to, at any temperature, it will be equal to T into S. So if you have a system, then the energy stored in the randomness of particles is going to be what? T into S. So this is how we will measure the entropy of a thermodynamic system. So the second variable we are talking about what? Entropy. So we'll discuss about the entropy and what are the relations we have between entropy and the other variables in further parts of the chapter. But here we just need to understand that there is going to be a physical quantity called as what? Entropy. Then this is another important thermodynamic variable we'll study, which is called as enthalpy, or also known as the total heat content. and this is indicated by the symbol H. What is enthalpy? Enthalpy is also called as what? Total heat content, and we use symbol H to represent it. So we said if we have any system, let's talk about, say for example, gas. We have the particles. The particles are having what? The associated motion, assuming this is an ideal gas. Then there is an energy associated with the movement of particles. That is what we are calling as the internal energy, either U or E. Now in addition to this, the particles of the gas, depending upon their pressure and volume, they can have some propensity to do work. Means, if the pressure is high, the gas propensity to do work will be more. If the volume is high, the propensity of the gas to do work will be more. So if we add the micro level energies of the particles, so the internal energy is what? It is the micro level energies of particles. To that, if we add the macro propensity of doing work, which is measured as simply what? Pressure into volume, that total value is what we will be calling as the enthalpy or total heat content. So here what we need to understand is, we'll discuss anyway about enthalpy in detailed manner later, but what we need to understand is there is one energy which is about the micro level movement of particles, but at a macro level, depending upon the pressure and volume, right, there is going to be a propensity for doing the work, and that is what is measured as what? Pressure into volume term. So if you add both these things, that is going to be called as what? The total heat content available in the system, and that is what will be known as what? Enthalpy. So enthalpy represents what? The total heat content available in the system. This is another important term which we will study in the idea of equilibrium chapter also, which will come next. What is this? Free energy, also called as what? Gibbs free energy. So this idea will be related to the concept of equilibrium, both chemical equilibrium as well as the ionic equilibrium. So what is this free energy? So what we said is, if you have any system, it has got a total heat content, which is indicated by what? The enthalpy. So total heat content is indicated by what? The enthalpy term. In that, there is some energy which is associated with the randomness of the particles. There is some energy which is associated with the randomness of particles that cannot be used for any other thing. The remaining part is only the useful part. So the remaining part will be what? It is going to be useful for doing the work, and this remaining part is what is called as the free energy or available energy for doing work. That is what we call as what? Gibbs free energy. So if you look at the relation, right, G will be equal to H, the total heat content enthalpy, minus the energy stored in the randomness of particles. Already we saw that it is going to be what? Temperature into entropy. So this relation we will anyway study about it further, but this is basically called as what? The free energy or Gibbs free energy. What does it measure? It represents the available energy of the system for doing useful work, because a part of the energy will be in the randomness of the particles. So these are the new thermodynamic variables that we are going to see in this chapter. We'll learn about them in detail, on what these factors will depend upon and all the other things. But in addition to the regular ones, right, like the volume, temperature, pressure and number of moles, we will have to be looking at these variables also. So this is what we will be calling as thermodynamic variables or thermodynamic properties. Now, if somebody is telling us that, okay, so there is a gas of 1 liter volume, 2 moles amount, and 3 bar pressure, like this, 0.8 joules of internal energy. So they are giving a combination of the values of the variables. So if you have a unique combination, means like this, we'll talk about the volume as 1 liter, number of moles is 2, pressure is 3 bar, internal energy is 8 joules. So we have a unique combination of these variables given to us, and that is what is going to be describing a state of a system. What is state of a system? It is nothing but a unique combination of the thermodynamic variables. So whenever we have the unique combination of thermodynamic variables, that is going to represent what? That is going to represent a system, a state of a system, like 1 liter volume, 2 mole, 3 bar, internal energy 0.8, maybe enthalpy 1.2 joules. So these unique values will be representing the state of a system. And if even one of these variables is changing, usually one variable will not change, but because some of the variables will be interlinked. Like say for example, we are just giving some indicative, 1 liter volume, 3 moles and 3 bar pressure. There are other variables also, we are not just telling it here. Let's say 1 liter, 3 mole, the pressure is changing to 2 bar. Even if one of the variables is changing, right, then what we say is that the state of the system is changing. So what we say is it is going from state 1 to state 2. And this is what the movement of a system from one state to other state, right, is what we will be calling as thermodynamic process. So what is a thermodynamic process? Even if one of the variables of the system is changing, we'll say what? The state is changing. Usually one variable will not change. What we'll have is more than one variable only will change. Why? Because the variables will be associated. Like even in the case of the gases, right, what do we see? If you look at the relation between them, we'll have the relation between the variables, right? Pressure, volume, number of moles and temperature related. Since we are talking about the closed system or isolated, because that is what will be our purview, we will not look at the open systems. So within this, right, what we have, the pressure, volume and temperature will be what? Related. Means if we change pressure, means that may have an effect on volume and temperature. If you have changed volume, means that will have an effect on temperature and pressure. So if even one of the variables is changing, then what we say, state is changing. And the movement of the system from one state to other state is called as what? Thermodynamic process. And in this chapter, right, what we will be studying is when this process is happening, what kind of heat exchanges are involved. So whenever there is a thermodynamic process, what kind of heat exchanges are involved? That is what is our focus in this chapter, and that is what we will be studying in thermodynamics essentially. So we talked about the thermodynamic variables. The common variables that we are already aware of, like the temperature, pressure, volume, etc., and some new variables like the internal energy, enthalpy, entropy, and then the free energy part. So we can classify these variables based on whether they are dependent upon the mass or amount. So how we'll classify them is if they are dependent upon the mass or amount of that system, then we will be calling them as extensive variables. So this is an important area for questions. Even in some past year medical entrances or all that, right, we get questions on this. So what are extensive variables? Those variables that depend on the mass or amount of the system. So how do we remember this easily? Look at this. So we can just mark these first three letters ext. So they depend upon what? They depend upon the extent. Extent means what? We can say extent means what? It represents the mass or amount. Other variables are basically intensive variables. So what is the classification? We can classify them as what? Extensive variables. They depend upon the mass. How do we remember this easily? Extent. Other is what? Intensive. We can just mark these first two letters. What is it? IN. So they will be what? Independent. They will be independent of the mass or amount. Means they don't depend upon the mass or amount. Such properties are called as what? Intensive properties. So we have what? Extensive properties and then intensive properties. Now the thing is, what will be the extensive properties and what will be the intensive properties? Like say for example, we talk about mass itself. Since mass will be depending upon the amount of the system or the mass of the system, right? So mass will be what? Definitely extensive property. What about the volume? Volume also will be what? Extensive, because if you take small mass means volume will be something. If you take a larger mass means, if you take a small mass means volume will be this much. If you take a larger mass means what? Volume is going to be increasing. So volume is what? It is also extensive property. Like that we have some extensive properties. If you look at something like a temperature or density or pressure, some variables like this, right, they don't depend upon the mass. So why are we saying they don't depend upon mass? Look at it. No, so if you have either this much amount of gas or this much large gas you take, the temperature is going to be what? Same. The temperature in these two will be what? Same. If we assume that it is sort of open to the atmosphere, the temperature is going to be what? Maintained same. Similarly, if you look at the density here or density here, it will be what? Same. Because what is the density formula? Mass by volume. Now if you increase the mass, means the corresponding volume also will increase, so that the density factor will be what? Coming constant. And pressure, if you look at it, right, whatever be the volume of the gas you take, depending upon the temperature, the pressure will be adjusted, so that we always have what? The pressure also will be same. So some properties, right, like temperature, density and pressure, they don't depend upon the mass or amount. Such properties are called as what? Intensive properties. The question is, how are we going to really classify the properties as extensive and intensive? How easily we can classify them as what? Extensive and intensive properties. For that there is an easy method or approach. So what we have to do is, whenever in exam also we have this kind of a question, how do we classify them as extensive and intensive variables? What we'll do is, think about a system. It can be like what? The gas in a room in which you are sitting. Think about a system. It's like a gas in a room in which we are basically sitting. Okay. And in that, think about a part of this, which is what we call as a subsystem. Like, the gas in one corner. So think about this entire thing is what? The total room is the system. Within that, you think about some part of the gas in one corner is got our subsystem. Now take the variable, whatever the variable, if the value of the variable is same for the system as well as the subsystem, then that is going to become what? Because system mass is different, subsystem mass will be different. Say for example, in the entire room, if there are 1 lakh particles, right, subsystem will be having maybe what? Some 1000 particles. Which means what? The variable, if it is coming same for both system and subsystem, means it is not depending upon the mass. Then it means what? It will be intensive variable. If the variable is coming different values for the system and subsystem, right, then it is going to be what? It is going to be an extensive variable. So this is how we will classify them as what? Intensive and then extensive. Now we will go to the example that we already discussed. So we said what? Mass. Obviously we have what? System means what? We already said maybe there are some 1 lakh particles. Subsystem means maybe some 1000 particles. So mass of 1 lakh particles will be different from mass of 1000 particles. So mass will be what? It will be we should write here, mass will be what? An extensive property, because it depends upon the the system value, and system value will be what? Different. Then let us talk about the volume. So we see the volume of the entire room is different from volume of the corner part, means what? Volume is also an extensive. Then we talk about, say for example, internal energy. What is internal energy? The energy associated with the micro level movement of particles. In system, how many particles we have? 1 lakh particles. Subsystem, we are having how many particles? 1000 particles. The micro level energies of the 1 lakh particles will be different from micro level energies of the 1000 particles. Means the internal energy is also going to become what? Extensive property. We talk about the entropy. What is entropy? The randomness. Entropy is measure of what? Randomness with the particles. System, we have what? 1 lakh particles. Subsystem, we are having what? 1000 particles. So the randomness associated with the 1 lakh particles will be different from randomness with the 1000 particles. Which means what? The entropy also must be what? Extensive property. Let's talk about the enthalpy, total heat content. Same. Total heat content of 1 lakh particles will be different from total heat content of 1000 particles. Means enthalpy is also what? Extensive property. Then free energy, which is what? The available energy for doing useful work. Same way, if you have 1 lakh particles, means with them whatever the available energy for doing useful work will be different from the available energy for doing useful work with the 1000 particles. Means what? The Gibbs free energy is also what? Extensive property, like that. So what we see interestingly is all these 4 new variables we saw, right? All of them are what? Extensive properties. Then let us talk about the intensive ones. What are the examples of the intensive ones we gave? We gave density is an what? Intensive variable. Like you measure the density of the system and density of subsystem, right? Here mass will be higher, here mass will be less. In system case volume will be higher, subsystem case volume will be lesser. So that mass by volume will be coming as what? Same. So the density for system and subsystem will be what? Same. Similarly temperature, right? You measure the temperature here by keeping a thermometer. Whatever the reading that you will get, corner also you are going to get the same reading, because what we see is that the particles will be moving here and there, so that the temperature will be always maintained same throughout the room. So system temperature is equal to what? The subsystem temperature. Means what? Temperature is intensive. Let's talk about the pressure, and we have the property of the gases, right? Pressure everywhere inside the gas system will be what? Same. Means if you measure the pressure here at point 1, which is the point in the system, if you measure the pressure at the point 2, which is the point in subsystem, both the place the pressure will be what? Same. So pressure is going to be what? Intensive. So the idea is like this: if we have a variable, the value of the variable is same for system and subsystem, right? That will be what? Intensive. Means the property is not depending upon the mass, it is independent of the mass. If the value of the variable is different, then it will be what? Extensive property. And we have an interesting relation between the extensive and intensive properties. That is, if you take a ratio of 2 extensive properties, and that is going to be giving us what? An intensive property. Like we said what? Mass is extensive property. Volume is also what? Extensive. If you do mass by volume, what you're getting? Density. And what is density? Density will be what? Intensive. So what is happening is the dependency on mass will be cut. We take a ratio, right? Here and here the dependency on mass will be cancelling. So what we have is the ratio of 2 extensive properties will be what? It will be an intensive property. So this also we'll have to remember, because it might be useful in solving some questions. Let's look at this question. Which of the following will be an intensive property? So we have been given some properties and we have to tell which of them is intensive property. So intensive property means what? The properties which are independent, the properties which are independent of the mass or amount, they are called as what? Intensive properties. So look at the things that are given to us. Option A is what? Molar entropy. Option B is what? Molar enthalpy. Option C is what? Molar internal energy. Now I think we use this word molar to represent per mole. Why do we use the word molar? It basically is used to represent per mole. So what is this per mole means? Molar entropy means entropy divided by number of moles. Molar enthalpy means what? Enthalpy divided by number of moles. Molar internal energy means what? Internal energy divided by number of moles. Now here we are talking about the ratio. I think by now itself you will be having some idea to approach that. If you look at the entropy is what? It is an extensive property. What about number of moles? Because if we have an idea, right, whether number of moles is an extensive or intensive, we'll go back to that original approach. What is it? We'll take the system and within that we'll consider one small subsystem. So what is the idea we can have? Okay, the system may be having some 1 lakh particles or something. The subsystem may be having what? Some 1000 particles. If you talk about number of moles, right, the number of moles in system will be different from number of moles in subsystem. Means what? Number of moles is also extensive property. So in all the cases what we see is here also, right, enthalpy is what? Extensive. Number of moles is extensive. Internal energy is what? Extensive. Here also number of moles is extensive. So what we are doing is we are taking a ratio of 2 extensive properties. What is the ratio of 2 extensive property? Ratio of 2 extensive properties will be what? It will be an intensive property. Means molar entropy will be what? Intensive. Molar enthalpy what? Intensive. Molar internal energy will be what? Intensive. So what is the correct answer for this? All of them. So all the 3 are basically what? Intensive properties. And how are we saying that? Based upon the relation that if you have a ratio of 2 extensive properties, the ratio of 2 extensive properties is going to be what? It is going to be an intensive property. Now we have seen one classification of the variables that is based on whether they were depending upon the mass or not. If they are depending upon the mass, means we are calling them as what? Extensive. They are not depending upon the mass, means we are calling it as what? Intensive. There is one more classification of the variables which we will explore later in detail. And this classification is basically depending upon whether they are related to the state or path. See, a thermodynamic process, right? A thermodynamic process can also be called as a thermodynamic path. So don't think that path is something different. A thermodynamic process can be also called as a thermodynamic path. So what we are saying is the variables can be classified based upon whether they are related to the state or they are related to the path. We will be able to understand more about this when we look at what is the thermodynamic process, or what are the types of the thermodynamic process that we will be studying in this chapter. But here we'll just try to get an idea. Like, say for example, if you talk about temperature, if you talk about volume, if you talk about say number of moles, if you talk about the pressure, okay, if you talk about the internal energy, if you talk about the enthalpy, if you talk about the entropy, if you talk about the free energy, all of them, right, they are related to a particular state. Remember, we said what we said, a state is defined by the unique combination of these variables. So all these variables, right, we'll be calling them as what, we'll be calling them as state functions, because they are linked to a state, and they'll be changing only when the state is changing, otherwise they will not change. So such properties that are linked to the state are called as what? State functions. And there will be some properties that will be linked to the path or thermodynamic process. There will be some properties that will be linked to the path or thermodynamic process. They are called as what? Path functions. The examples of path functions that we are going to be studying are one is work, and second is heat exchange. What are the path functions that we will be studying? One is work and second is what? Heat exchange. So these values, right, they will be depending upon the thermodynamic process that we are choosing, or they will depend upon the path which we are taking in moving from the state 1 to state 2. So here the state functions, right, they are linked to the state, means the change in these values, right, always we can say the change will be easily what? The final, let's say for example, we want to look at what is the change in the internal energy. It will be what? The final state internal energy value minus initial state internal energy value. Means however we go from the initial state to final state, it will be always what? The final energy value minus initial energy value. If you want to talk about the change in temperature, what will be change in temperature? Final temperature value minus initial temperature value. So however we go from the state 1 to state 2, always the value will be equal to what? The final temperature value minus initial temperature value. So these variables are depending upon what? State. That's why they are called as what? State functions. But these variables, work and heat exchange, right, they would be depending upon the path. Means from state 1 to state 2, we will see that we can go in different kind of thermodynamic paths. We'll have different types of thermodynamic paths, and for each of these paths the value of work and heat exchange could be different depending upon the path that we are choosing, right. The value of work and heat exchange will be coming as what? Different. So we will understand more about it when we learn on how do we measure work and what are the different types of thermodynamic process we will study. So this is second classification of the variables. What is it? We can classify them as what? The state functions and then path functions. What are state functions? State functions are basically what? The variables that are linked to the state. We can find the change in the value of variable by what? Simply final value minus initial value. They are not concerned about the path we choose from reaching from the first point to the second point. Whereas work and heat exchange, right, they depend upon the path or thermodynamic process we are choosing to reach from state 1 to state 2. That's why they are called as what? Path functions. So this is the second classification of thermodynamic variables. So this is broadly the introduction to the idea of the system and variables, because as we go into the discussion of this chapter, right, we are going to be talking about the system and variables quite often, because the entire study is going to be focusing on them. But before this thermodynamics has evolved, right, there is an older version of the study related to this, and that is what will be called as calorimetry. So calorimetry is like sort of genesis, which then paved the way for the entire thermodynamics. So in the next video, what we look at is how it all started, how the study of thermodynamics has started. Means we are going to start with the calorimetry. So in calorimetry, this is something that we have seen in the lower standards also, like in the 9th standard and all that. We have learned some things about the calorimetry. Like we would have talked about heat capacity, we would have talked about the specific heat capacity and all that. So that part of the study is what we'll call as calorimetry. So we'll complete calorimetry and then we'll come back to thermodynamics.